All right, how's it going, everybody? Got the presentation set up for. I'm doing chapter 10 on appraisals. And a little background here. Let's see, I was chosen to do this because my actual job title is appraiser. I'm a real property appraiser for the Assessor's Department of Los Angeles County. And so our appraisals are actually used in the property tax process, which if you've watched my videos, I've mentioned this before, but this is what the process looks like. We're basically step one in the property tax process. We appraise the market value of property, both residential and commercial industrial. Are those appraisals, those market values are used, then they go to the auditor controller. They apply the value to tax rates and they calculate a tax bill. And then there's still one more step here, which is then it goes to the tax collector. The tax collector is the one that actually mails out bills and collects taxes. So, and this is important because where appraisal fits into my job is not all property is created equal. Obviously, we're not going to cost both of these properties exactly the same. So there needs to be some discretion involved for what the level of taxation should be for those. And obviously, we're not going to appraise these the same as we would this place over here. So this is going to come in. This appraisal will be much higher. Anyway, that's kind of where I'm coming from, and it's not really germane to the book, but the definition of appraisal really is more so. So, what is an appraisal? At its most simple level, an appraisal is an opinion of value. That is it. We're talking about somebody's opinion. It's not a fact. It's not concrete. It's not set in stone. It's somebody's opinion. And that actually does apply to employees as well. So my actual experience in this area is kind of in my prior experience is what's more relevant to this class anyway. Excuse me. Before this, I was a teacher, high school teacher, and so there's appraisal involved there. That's you're appraising students' work, but I think probably the most direct corollary is before that. I worked for Starbucks for 12 years, and for the last 5 of those, I was a manager. So I did actual employee reviews. So I've been on both sides, but I had years of getting reviewed and then giving reviews, and at the same time still getting reviews from my superiors. So anyway, and there's me. That picture is very old. I think that's from like the year 2000 or something. So it was probably about, I don't know, 2021 there. My hair is far less thick these days. But anyway, so appraising employees, why is it important? Well, simply put, employees have the right to know where they stand in an organization. They want to know if their labor is being valued. They hope so anyway. They also probably deserve to know if they're one screw up away from being kicked out the door. Employers can use performance evaluations, appraisals of employee behavior to correct deficiencies, to manage performance, to calibrate expectations, and potentially to inspire the employee to greater heights for the benefit of the whole organization. The reality is that the process is often contentious and adversarial. Oftentimes, employees walk away from the process feeling estranged from management, hostile, and disgruntled, like our old pal Milton over here. And really, all he wanted was his stapler. You don't want people walking away from the process upset, particularly to the point where they may engage in violence. So appraising employees is something that's actually very important and very delicate. It's a super important component of any managerial, of any manager's job, no matter whether you're public or private sector. Performance may improve, or employees may become sullen and stop trying under the assumption that their work isn't valued anyway. So I'm going to add a personal anecdote to appraisal here. So I'm going to use an example from my days at Starbucks. This is actually going to be from before I was a manager. This is when I was being reviewed. So I worked at a store in a small little tourist town up in Oregon. And this is right around the time where I was graduating from college, and I had decided that I wanted to go into management with Starbucks. And I worked at a store where the manager was kind of we'll call it an absentee manager. She would cut out early to go get her nails done and go tanning and stuff. And so there was a lot of issues at the store until I kind of decided that for a while I was kind of annoyed by this. And then I decided, well, this means that there's a leadership void, and so I can kind of do a lot of things the way that I want them done. And so my manager kind of loved me because I handled a lot of what could have been her work. So I did all of the ordering, receiving, the inventory counts, pretty much everything but the scheduling. So I was handling that, and so I was pretty important to the success of that particular store. Well, that manager wound up getting fired because that's kind of what happens. The appraisal of her level of work was not particularly good by her superior. So anyway, when the new boss came in, my performance review was due up about 2 weeks later, and she'd been there for 2 weeks and had never actually really worked with me. Didn't really know all that much, and you could tell she kind of phoned it in. Reviews were given on a 3-point scale: it was ones, twos, and threes, and everything was just twos straight down the line. Very average, very, it wasn't fair anyway for the level of work that I was putting in. And so, I wanted her to know that I knew that she really didn't try on this. And so I asked her at the very end, I said, well, what could I do differently that would change some of these twos to threes? What part of my performance is deficient? What should I really work on going forward? She stammered a lot. It was a lot of and you could tell that she was embarrassed, and she knew that I knew that this was not very legitimate. And so, from then on, she actually became an advocate for me to go into management, and things wound up working out. But anyway, I could have become sullen. I could have just said, you know what, forget this. My work is not appreciated here, and stop doing what I was doing. Stop trying hard, because that was a situation where the review was not particularly well given. There wasn't a lot of thought put into it, and so I always made sure when I was giving reviews that, as annoying as it can be, that I really tried hard to put some thought into it anyway. So what are some rules of proper appraisal? What should you do? How should the review process play out? Well, the book talks about, there's kind of 4 main areas. First off, initial goal setting. It's important that employees have an idea what is going to be expected of them. This should probably be part of the review process from the previous review. Part of that should be setting goals for the next review process, and then seeing how you've done meeting those goals. And whenever possible, employees should actually be active collaborators in establishing these goals. However, depending on the organization, this may or may not be possible. The next step in the appraisal process would be monitoring and data availability. Preferably, there should be some sort of metric or statistic or something that you can measure employee performance by. Employers should be constantly monitoring this performance. This is not a job to actually start paying attention to 2 weeks before the performance evaluation is due. And also, the book didn't mention to avoid doing this, but I personally would believe that you should avoid doing this, which is to avoid emphasis of what's called critical incidents. Critical incidents, meaning, say, if an employee got a complaint 2 weeks before the review, and you basically based the entire review off of that critical incident. And it can work the other way too. If they did something really good for a week right before their performance evaluation, you probably shouldn't discount the past 6 months of sloppy work. So you want to try and look at the whole picture of what somebody's done. And to do that, that really kind of feeds into the notion that you need to be giving continuous feedback. Employees, if they don't know that they're messing up, then they're far more likely to contest a poor review. They should actually be appraised of this on a regular, ongoing basis. And the book also says annual assessment, and I kind of put in there regular assessment because it doesn't necessarily need to happen on an annual basis. I think 6 months is actually a little bit better, just because it allows people, a year is a long time to go without a raise, without the employee hearing what their value is to the organization or where they need to improve. Types of leadership in appraisal. There were 2 that I found that were kind of, that I felt were the most important. First off is transactional leadership, which by its very nature, the review process is transactional because it's kind of that mixture of carrots and sticks, of incentives to perform and then consequences if you don't. So, it's the organization saying, if you behave like you're supposed to, you're going to get more. And if you don't, then you're going to get less. So by its very nature, it is kind of a transactional type of leadership. Also beyond that, situational leadership. Reviews need to be delivered with tact. This guy looks like a very friendly boss over here, so I'm sure he's probably pretty good at this. But it needs to be done with the idea of how to best motivate each employee, because there might be some people that would benefit from, say, tough love, and that might utterly destroy somebody else. So you need to be very careful with how you approach the situation, and remember that the most important thing to do is to maximize the productivity and efficiency of the employee, and there's going to be a variety of ways that you need to approach that. There were several different types of appraisal, like trait-based and skills-based and that sort of thing, but in the interest of keeping this presentation under 20 minutes, I'm not going to go into that. I know that you guys can read, but anyway, thank you for watching my presentation. Hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, and bear in mind how important it is, if you are ever in that situation where you're the one that's evaluating somebody else's performance, that it's something that needs to be done delicately, with tact, and with respect for that particular employee if you want to actually see them improve as an employee. So thanks for watching, everybody. Till next week.